And we have some seats over here if you would like to have a seat, please. If you would like to get some on this side. Good morning. It is a great day in Orangeburg County. Can I hear it for the residents here? On behalf of the City Council, I would like for them to stand, please. All City Council members, please stand. I want to thank Secretary Pete Buttigieg. We are so happy to have him here, along with the Honorable great Congressman James Clyburn. Let's hear it for them. For being with us today, as well as our elected officials, all the elected officials, would you please stand and be recognized, all the elected officials. This is such an exciting day for the city of Orangeburg. Railroad County is a historical significant location in our city, beginning as early as the 20th century. It was once a thriving hub for African American businesses. It is also a midpoint between the two sites of Orangeburg massacre. Several years ago, the city of Orangeburg began the process of redeveloping Railroad County. We hired a firm to assist us in identifying a developer, held community engagement sessions. We chose conceptual designs. Proposals were solicited in February, and Orangeburg University District Partners was chosen as the developer. Each day we get closer to making our dream of developing Railroad County a reality, and today marks another special benchmark in this process. It is a great honor to have our Secretary Buttigieg here and our Congressman here today for this special announcement. We are so appreciative of their support and dedication in making this project a reality for the city of Orangeburg. May God continue to bless us. At this time, we will bring Layla to the podium. Let's give Layla a hand.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Layla DaCosta. I'm currently a sophomore at Clyburn University, and I'm here to talk on behalf of the students here in Orangeburg. This project truly is going to be transformational for all students involved and everyone in the community. It really is so amazing to see Orangeburg be brought up to its full potential, because I just know that it could be so much greater than what it is. And I'm just so excited for the development and how it will bring about new retail spaces, potentially student housing, and just the safety that it will bring so that the students can feel more comfortable going to the railroad corner and even, walking over there. And it really just is gonna be a great day in Orangeburg. And I'm so excited to be a part of the history and be here to see it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Layla. Layla DaCosta. It's kind of interesting to participate in projects like this. And I leaned over to her and she sat down and said, "Now, which DaCosta are you?" And she told me who her granddad was, who I knew. That told you a little bit about why I have no hair left. Let me thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your visionary leadership of this great city. Orangeburg means a whole lot to me, as you know. When I was a kid growing up over in Sumter, my father pastored 2 days a month, every second and fourth Sunday. We were at the Little Church of God here on Treadwell Street. And I came over with him almost every time he came, because my mother did not want to ride across that bridge, which at the time was a cross-tile bridge. have any. If you could look out of your window right through the surface onto the water. She did not like that sight. And so I used to come here with him every day. And then after church on Sundays, we would have dinner with Dr. Gabe Buckman, who was chair of the Department of Agriculture at the time, or Matty Buttigieg, who was chair of the Department of Home Economics at the time, or at the Rhodes family, who were administrators here at South Carolina State. So I grew up in this community by and large. And when I got ready to go to college, my mother told me that I needed to go north to school. She gave me all the schools that she thought I should apply to her, and I told her I was doing the applications. Well, late in my senior year of high school, she asked, had I heard from any of the colleges? I said, only one. Said, nobody else would accept me. Well, the truth of the matter was, I only applied to one. And so this community has been in my blood for a long, long time. And so years ago, when after my student days of hanging out at Mr. Weber's soda shop, learning South Carolina history that he taught in that soda shop, as well as the classroom, and hanging out a few doors down from the soda shop was another little shop that a lot of you all in here, I remember, used to participate in Lamar's, and not Lamar's Eatery, but Lamar's little state store. And between the soda shop and that state store was another little facility that we used to frequent. We'd go to Lamar's for half of the libations, go over to the soda shop for the other half, and then we'd meet in the middle for consumption purposes. So this community, this corner is very, very important to me. And so way back when we were developing what was then called Tiger Grants, back in 2009 when we were doing the Reinvestment Act, Recovery and Reinvestment Act, Tiger Grants were looked to by cities all over the country for relief in trying to come back from the economic catastrophe that we experienced in September 2008. I tell people all the time that they forget that economic collapse occurred about 3 months before Barack Obama was elected President of the United States, and about 6 months before he took office, 4 months to be exact. And so we look for ways to get communities back on their feet. And the Tiger Grant has gone through a lot of iterations and is now raised grant. And several years ago, the mayor said to me that he saw Railroad County as the most important thing that he could do for this community. Now, there's something interesting about where we are. 3 census tracts come together here. And those 3 census tracts are called persistent poverty communities. And they are defined by the Census Bureau. And that definition is this: any community where 20% or more of the population has been stuck beneath the poverty level for 30 years is considered a persistent part of the community. Think about it. Here in Orangeburg, where we have a county with 6 United States highways coming through this county, 2 Class A railroads coming through this county, 3 institutions of higher education in this county, all within walking distance of where we're standing. And yet these 3 census tracts are defined by the Census Bureau as persistent poverty. You go figure. The infrastructure to do what needs to be done is here. We have not developed it. And we're here today to take one giant step. And so I want to thank Secretary Buttigieg, who has been in this community several times, been on these campuses, both these campuses, several times. I don't know, the President told him he hadn't been to Orangeburg County yet, but he's coming, Mr. President. I promise that. When we come to do the dedication, then I want to thank him for his visionary leadership. It's something that's to be said for experience. I don't say that because I am getting ready to celebrate my 83rd birthday next month. But as mayor of South Bend, Indiana, he has first-hand knowledge of what being a mayor is all about. And to take that experience with him into this administration, he knew something about evaluating the worth of projects that are submitted for funding. And so I will congratulate the leadership here. The city manager, where is he? I saw him. Okay. Yeah. I want to thank all of you for doing a great proposal. It was meritorious. But just because a proposal is meritorious doesn't mean it's going to get funded. I've seen a lot of them. They were meritorious and didn't get funded. But when you have someone doing the evaluations, who's had the experience of what you're trying to say, what you're trying to achieve, it means something. And this secretary did something else. Back when we were putting together the Recovery and Reinvestment Act, I objected to some of what they were planning because I knew what had happened during the Great Depression. When the country was trying to recover from the Great Depression, I knew how these pockets of poverty got created. And I said to them in the very first meeting, I am not going to be a part of a recovery that leaves the communities that I represent out. We have got to figure a way for them to be brought along. And they put in a little formula at my suggestion called 10, 20, 30. Those 20% of the population stuck in poverty level, at the poverty level for 30 years, at least 10% of this money must be targeted to those communities. That's what 10, 20, 30 is all about. And this secretary looked at that proposal, looked at that formula, and when they funded this project to the tune of just a few dollars short of $23 million. They applied the contents of that formula, which says this project will be built out 100% and no matching requirements. You're getting it all. I must admit that when I first saw the budget and they showed me these plans and told me what it was going to cost, I told them, I'll see what I can do. Mr. Secretary, thank you for making me look like I know what I'm doing. Mr. Secretary.
Well, good morning. Good morning. And thank you so much, Congressman. You have been such an effective voice for this entire region. I think you all know this, but you have had a relentless advocate for this project. We are here in so many ways, not only because of Congressman Clyburn's leadership in advocating for this project, but because of Whip Clyburn's leadership in giving us the ability to have these funds in the first place. Remember, this bipartisan infrastructure law is the sort of thing that was promised and attempted under previous presidencies and by previous Congresses for years. People said that they were going to deliver landmark infrastructure legislation. And I think that's part of why when President Biden said it was going to be a priority, a lot of people said, oh, okay, we'll see. It was declared dead again and again and again, but thanks to the leadership of Whip Clyburn, thanks to the leadership of President Biden, and thanks to the voices of communities around the country saying, we need this. We got that legislation through, and we are so much better off for it. So thank you for your leadership in more ways than one. Thank you, Mayor. As was said before, I come to these questions very much as a mayor or as a former mayor. I know exactly how it feels to look at the potential of what could be in your community and to try to rally a community around that vision. I'll admit, I do not know exactly how it feels to have a cabinet secretary come bring $22 million to help you get that vision done. I did not have that particular blessing in my days as mayor of South Bend. But you can feel the pride in your work, your city team, the county leaders who are here, leaders from the universities and around the community. And I'll tell you, you can feel all the way out in Washington, you can feel the difference when a community pulls together behind a vision like this. So I want to congratulate this community. I'll have a little more to say about that. To have the university leadership here means a great deal. To have Layla speaking for the students whose lives and whose studies will benefit from this work, and to put us in touch with that future that you represent is something we really appreciate. I want to acknowledge all of the leaders who are here and our own team who worked so hard to bring us to today. We call it Raise Day. Happy Raise Day is what we're saying to each other at the DOT, because we've got projects going on across the country, more than 150, which made it a little hard to choose which one to begin with to come celebrate, but I wanted to be right here in Orangeburg. I want to thank my colleagues, including Alvin Brown, who many know is a fellow former mayor of Jacksonville, working in our department. And I would add, he's been nominated by President Biden to serve on the National Transportation Safety Board, whose work has only grown more important in recent times. So glad you could be here and thankful for all of our colleagues. And it just feels good to be in Orangeburg, to be back in Orangeburg, because I was welcomed so warmly here before. Had the chance to go bowling with Claflin and SCSU students. Best bowling game ever. I can't ever bowl again when people are watching, because then people will discover that it was a bit of a fluke that I bowled well that time. But more importantly, what I got in my visits to Orangeburg was an education. about the importance of this community. To say this community is special would not adequately state the case. It would be better to say this is hallowed ground. And it was hallowed, of course, in part by the blood that was shed in the Orangeburg massacre, which had to do in part with the insistence that there be a better connection, a better relationship between the lives of those who were on campus and the opportunity downtown. Something as simple as a recreational opportunity to go bowling, and something as profound and connected to that as the opportunities, the economic opportunities and the life opportunities that come with full integration and participation and equality. A struggle which, of course, in some ways goes on to this day. But it's the kind of struggle I reflect on a lot as I think about how the social connection and movement and mobility that was at stake in the civil rights movement is often related to the very physical, concrete movement that we deal with in transportation. Transportation is about movement. Transportation is about connection. But even though by definition transportation is about connection, we often see how assets having to do with transportation serve to divide. And we see a very stark example of that right at the site of this project, where thoroughfares and a railway divide a campus community from the opportunities that are on the other side of the tracks. It means something that we even have that phrase in our American English language, the other side of the tracks. It tells you a thing or two about the relationship between how transportation can either connect or divide. And that's why we're so glad to be here. Because right now we have an opportunity to take on board what we have learned from the past, to recognize the relationship between the past, the present, and the future, and to ensure that this time, unlike with some of the decisions that were made in the past, transportation dollars, federal taxpayer transportation dollars, will be used to connect rather than to divide, to enhance rather than to diminish, to include rather than exclude. That is why we are so proud to award Orangeburg $22.7 million to cover the full cost of this railroad project. Congratulations. We are excited. This is a great credit to the community, and we know these dollars are going to go to good use. This funding will go to a new pedestrian bridge over the roads, the highways, and the railroad tracks that have cut the community in two so that people can easily, quickly, and safely walk or bike from campus to downtown. It includes that new transit hub featuring a public transit stop and charging stations. So you don't have to necessarily own a car to get from one part of town to another. Transit is not just about moving through America's biggest metropolitan areas. It connects smaller communities too. And it can be a leveler if there is equal and affordable access to it. And for those who do own cars, a new public parking area so that there's a better place to park, and creating room for better crosswalks and sidewalks on the street. There's a lot to love about this project. The safety implications are especially important right now. Our country is confronting a crisis in terms of roadway deaths, preventable crashes, the greatest share of which in terms of the rise has been pedestrian and cyclist deaths. Matter of fact, South Carolina suffers from the second highest pedestrian fatality rate in the nation. But leaders here are not taking that sitting down. They're making the investments that are going to save lives, and this is a great example for that. And it means more affordable transportation options for residents who couldn't afford a car, and for those who do, less traffic. And it means that the students and all those who live in this community will be better able to reach jobs and businesses and access to groceries and doctors' offices, government services, family, church, wherever it is you need to be in the rest of Orangeburg. And that, in turn, means more business and more jobs for people who work in the area and stronger economic development for years to come. As we speak, President Biden is preparing to give a major economic address in Chicago, laying out an economic vision we like to call Bidenomics. And while it's being presented in the commentaries as something new, it's something that every mayor understands. It's the simple proposition that good public sector investments make good private sector investments possible. That when you choose to invest in the right corner, the right streetscape, all the way through to the right national infrastructure vision, part of what will come from that is the private sector doing what it does best. And I spoke to local leaders who have an economic vision for what will come next once we get it right on the public side. Now, as excited as we are about this grant, the even better news is that there are 162 grants just today that we're announcing through this program, RAISE, formerly known as BUILD, formerly known as Tiger. And they are going to support projects in every state in the nation. We are replacing 9 outdated bridges in rural Iowa, strengthening the supply chains there. We're building new sidewalks, storm drains, and shared use paths in Bryant, Arkansas, helping to save lives there. We're investing in a project in Kentucky that, in addition to creating a great transportation and trail asset, is going to help them ward off floods that have been devastating in a community there. In Philadelphia, we're adding crosswalks and pavement and traffic signals around half a dozen schools so that children can more safely get to school and get home, just to name a few. Some of them are in big cities, some of them are in rural areas. And as was mentioned earlier in that 10, 20, 30 vision, it has been very important to us to make sure that these dollars reach communities where they're going to make the biggest difference, including historically underserved and overburdened communities. 70% of the grant funding in this cycle is going to underserved communities and areas of persistent poverty, because we know how important. And we know that communities have been trying to realize these plans for years. And now we're finally able to get it done. And again, this is all possible thanks to President Biden's leadership, thanks to this historic infrastructure law, and then one that would not be here were it not for the leadership that we have had in an extraordinary caucus in Congress and with Whip Clyburn's leadership to get this done. I also want to mention that this is a very competitive round of applications. So we are glad to have had a historically large amount of funding to work with, but still, we had to say no even to very good projects so that there would be room for the very, very, very good projects that we were able to say yes to. We got $15 billion in requests for about $2.2 billion in funding that we're announcing today. So the fact that this project was selected is something for which this community should take a great deal of pride, and I want to congratulate them. And there's going to be more good news where this came from. Since this this bipartisan infrastructure law was signed, we have funded over 30,000 projects nationwide. Just this week, 130 projects in over 40 states, including here in South Carolina, to deliver American-made low-emission and no-emission buses made by American workers, and investing in the workforce training to help workers get ready to support those next-generation fleets. Friday, we opened applications for a combined grant program that's going to support everything from small rural bridges to some of the biggest, most complex projects in the nation. And very soon, we will be opening up applications for the second round of a program we call Reconnecting Communities, which is the first ever federal program dedicated to projects like this one that will connect people to jobs, resources, and opportunity where they may have been divided by the infrastructure decisions of the past. And we're just getting started. We are acting to reverse decades of underinvestment and exclusion in America's transportation systems. And that isn't easy, but we are moving forward by reckoning with the past and preparing for a better future. We are all reckoning with our inheritance, with decisions that the generations now living did not make, but the generations to come are going to be living with. And what we can control is the next step, the next effort, the next project, what to do with the next dollar. And we do so mindful of what it will mean for those who come after us, our children and grandchildren and their children. The youngest people visiting this event right now, of whom I've been able to see a couple in the photo line, will be using the infrastructure that we're preparing to create today for the rest of their lives. That's why this matters so much. And that's why I'm so proud to be with you in Orangeburg, celebrating this good news. And the only thing, Mayor, I love more than a grant announcement is a ribbon cutting. So I hope you'll send me an invitation to this thing. Thanks very much for the chance to be here. I think we have a little bit of time for media questions, so reporters can look to my colleague Ben, who will quarterback that process.
We'll just start from the left and just work our way over here. Any questions on the left? Go for it.
Adam, so you said all of these projects, the Biden administration has $2.2 billion that they're requesting. Why specifically come to Orangeburg? Why specifically this project? Would you make the trip out to South Carolina?
Well, part of the idea of this program, I'll mention two things. First of all, community-driven projects. So we didn't think up any of these projects at the US DOT headquarters in Washington. The whole idea of this is that the great ideas for projects aren't going to come from Washington, but more of the funding should. And so this is a great example of a vision that the community has had for some time that would have been a reality but for the funding. And now we're able to bring the funding. And I think this is a great example of that. The other thing is that as we were making those difficult decisions about which projects would make the cut, we were looking for ones that brought together a number of the different things that we've been so focused on in this administration. Jobs, economic development, environmental benefit through less pollution, safety, which is the main reason my department exists in the first place, equity, and making sure that people who were in communities and neighborhoods that were excluded in the past are included in the future. All of that's at stake in this project. The safety benefits of having better ways to get around, especially on foot or on a bike. The equity benefits of making sure that we are connecting where there had been divisions. The benefits just in terms of air quality that come when you have better access to transit and active transportation and the charging infrastructure that's going to go in. And of course, the economic virtue of this connection between the opportunities down this part of town and the campus and everything that sits across those proverbial tracks. So to me, it is a great example of why we have this project, this funding in the first place, to support community projects that are going to lead to job creation, safety, cleaner air, and a better future.
Go for it.
We know as the congressman and local leaders showed me the corner, you could see in a way that doesn't come across on paper exactly why this is needed. You can see how it stands as kind of barrier that serves effectively to divide two parts of one community. And you could see also the potential, what it could mean to have that connectivity there. So we do our best to understand these projects based on the applications that come in, but there's really no substitute for being able to see it for yourself.
Go for it.
Secretary Buttigieg, what are your odds on House Republicans who are applauding projects that are funded with federal dollars from this bipartisan infrastructure law, but they voted against it originally?
Well, I would say, welcome aboard. Look, this is good policy. And it's true that not every member of Congress was there with us when we were working to get this done. And it turns out that is no barrier to them being glad to see that funding come to their districts. I think because this was good policy all along. And look, partisan politics get in the way sometimes. Although we're proud of the fact that this is a bipartisan bill, that a number of Republicans were willing to come across and work with Democrats and work with the president to get this done. But look, a good project is a good project, and we're not going to hold it against the constituents of any member who was short-sighted enough to vote no on the infrastructure or the broadband or the clean water pipes that they are now so quick to join us in celebrating.
We'll come back here. Go for it.
Yes, Secretary Buttigieg, a couple years ago, you campaigned in Allendale County. What are things that can be done to some of these underserved counties in South Carolina to bring about more equity?
Well, one thing I would point to is rural transit. Again, there's this vision, there's this idea out there that sometimes transit is just about, you know, the subway in New York City, but it's in rural communities often that people are most reliant on it. And so part of what we were able to do in the low-no bus program I was talking about, partnering with state partners, is to support, I think, over 24 rural transit agencies, getting them more up-to-date equipment. That's one example. Another is just better roads and bridges, and very intentionally this bill was crafted not only to help redo some of the biggest, most famous bridges needing work around the country, but those smaller off-system bridges that have been hard for counties and states to maintain. We've got to make sure that we reach everybody with this funding, and we've been very intentional about that. It's actually a 50-50 split between urban and rural in the RAISE grants that are going out this year, and we're going to continue to be very mindful of that going forward.
May I address at this moment? On yesterday, Secretary Granholm was here. We were in Columbia together, and at the time we were talking about the EV charging stations that we would be building away from the interstate highways, and I think 3 big battery plants that are here. One of those in Carlton County, and I think Allendale is getting one of those, right? So that connects Allendale and Carlton County to this project, because you're going to have charging stations here at this facility. The interconnectedness of all of this, I think, is very, very important. Now, at the same time that we were together, they're announcing $551 million for broadband in South Carolina. Now, let me take a minute just to say something to you. The governor announced several months ago that we needed $650 million to build South Carolina out 100%. I stood with him at that announcement. I called him day before yesterday when I got word that the $551 million was coming. In that $650 million, he only had $100 million coming from our broadband initiative, what we call the FCC auctions. Where he factored in $100 million, he's getting $551 million. So this $451 million above the $650 million he needed to do that which was basic, which means we're going to go beyond basic with broadband for South Carolina, and that was announced on yesterday. On Monday, we announced in Charleston $25 million for the transit hub that they're building in Charleston. In fact, the last time, I think it was the last time, he may have been sneaking in and I not know it. But the last time the secretary was here, we were in Charleston for that project, and that $25 million is the project that he went down and met with the people in Charleston. That was announced on Monday. And I'll have a little fun with this too. A congressperson down there who did not vote for the bill is having a press conference today. They're trying to take credit for the $25 million.
Yes, sir.
What is the timeline for this project? When will the bridge, when will we see dirt being moved, and exactly how will the bridge be constructed? If you kind of give us a visual of where it's going to begin and
So I'll turn to the city for more of the particulars on that. Yep.
Thank you. Great question, Gene. So we're looking to start turning dirt by next year. OUDP, Orangeburg University District Partners with the developer, is here with us today. But we certainly understand the community and the anxiousness about getting this project done, but we want to get it done right. We want to do it right. As Secretary Buttigieg said, this is about bridging the divide, symbolically and figuratively. So we hope to get the project started. In terms of where it's going to be located, it will be located in a position that will best serve the universities and obviously to get students safely across. But we have to speak with the Norfolk Southern, the railroad. They're going to be a major part of helping determine where best to locate it, because there are all kind of federal regulations as it relates to that. So that's still yet to be determined.
Please tell them who you are and your position.
Thank you. Sidney Everett, Orangeburg City Administrator.
Secretary Buttigieg, a little off topic, but there's a bunch of flights that are being canceled right now across the East Coast due to severe weather. AAA says they're expecting a record day of travel. Do you have any comments to say about that?
Yeah, we had hit with some pretty tough weather. It's affected a lot of flights. I reached my hotel room about 2:30 in the morning last night after my flight got canceled and the next one got delayed. A lot of Americans are going through the same thing. What I will say is that overall, we've seen the system perform much better than it did a year ago. And I think that reflects the work we've done. I think it reflects the airlines stepping up. I want to give them credit where credit is due. But clearly, there's a long way to go. Now, you can't control the weather. We've had very tough weather the last few days. That's definitely being felt through the system. But what's different this year compared to a year ago is that there is more cushion. We're seeing more of the staffing that there needs to be. And importantly, passengers have more rights because we've been able to get these customer service agreements that are enforceable from the airlines, and we've stepped up on the regulation side. So what that means is you can go, anybody planning a trip, and a lot of Americans are, can go to flightrights.gov and get more information about what you are owed in the event that you get stuck and the airline's responsible, what you can expect in terms of hotels, meals, vouchers, that kind of thing. And we're always going to have passengers back. So if you do run into an issue, the airline's not doing what they're supposed to, you can let us know, and we're going to follow up. So again, we know that nobody can control the weather, but anything under our control at the FAA, we're going to be working on, and anything under the airline's control, they need to step up and take responsibility.
Got time for one more if anyone's got a question. All right.
Thank you again for such a warm welcome, and congratulations to the community of Orangeburg. Great.